Hi guys, my name is Kirsty and welcome back to Upside Down Books. It's been a while, but we are back.
Non più tra I farfalloni amoroso, notte giorno di torno.
So today we're going to be looking at my December wrap-up. We're going to be looking at all the books that I read in December and I'm very excited to share it with you. I think I'm going to put a light on over this side. Hopefully this lighting is okay and I don't regret that. So in December I had an amazing TBR set for myself. I wanted to read 10 books to finish off my TBR, Christmas present TBR from 2019, and I actually did a really good job and I'm proud of myself. I was very concerned that I was going to fall down at the third hurdle, being the third book on my TBR, but I managed to get past that. I actually read 8 books in December, though only 6 of them were from that specific TBR. There were 2 audiobooks that I finished in December as well, so I'm pretty chuffed with that. Just as a PSA, I have been AWOL for the last couple of weeks. If you don't follow my Instagram, I recommend you do, because any updates, like when I spontaneously disappear, I do talk about over on Instagram, but basically I have not been able to edit videos or sit at a computer for a few weeks for various reasons. So I am back now. I am hoping to pick up a regular schedule, but there may be a chance that my schedule might be a little bit hit and miss over the coming weeks. So if you notice that, then just bear with me because I'm trying to suss things out on my end here. But without further ado, let's start playing catch up and a look at my book haul for last month. So the first book that I finished in December was A Breath of Snow and Ashes by Diana Gabaldon. This is the 6th, I think, book in the Outlander series, and it was amazing. I rated this 5 out of 5 stars, and it went onto my all-time favorites list. I just love this series. There's nothing to not love about it, but I have to say that this one in particular, I really, really enjoyed. I think my general consensus for this series is that book 1's really good, book 2's quite good, and then there's like a little bit of a lull, I think around 3 to 4 for me, and then like 5 picked up a bit more and 6 was like right back up to where we were with 1, which is a big commitment. That I'm really selling it for you there, but I do think that this is very much so worth reading. I just really enjoyed all the character developments and events that happened in this 6th book, and I found that it went like that. And I was really nervous going into it, and I've been putting off listening to the audiobook for ages because it's a really big book. It is about 60 hours long for the audiobook, and I think it's around 1,000 pages depending on the version you have. I'm honestly not sure. I really want to get a box set of them because I'm pretty sure the 5th one or the 4th one is 1,400 pages, also depending on the version. So I'd really like to see them and actually see how the sizes vary, but that is sort of beside the point. This is just such a wonderful story, and if you haven't started reading Outlander or even watching it, then I recommend you do, because it's good fun. It's really good fun. The next book that I picked up was Between Shades of Grey by Brutus the Petties. If you recall, for my December TBR, I decided to rank the 10 books that I had remaining from my last Christmas haul in order of their highest rating. So this was the highest rated one, and it was deservedly so. I just flew through this. This is like World War II fiction, but it's about Lithuania, and it's about what the Russians were doing with the Lithuanians, and not very similar to concentration camps that the Jews and other prisoners were put in, but this was a little bit more specific for Lithuanians, with Russia sort of just taking over that country. And there's so much history that I didn't know about Lithuania. I found this really eye-opening, especially the author's note at the very end where Brutus the Petties herself talks about how it is a relatively underrepresented era of history, considering that it's like a full almost 100 years that these people have suffered in not having their own identity and country and their own culture and language being illegal, etc, etc. So this was a fantastic read that I highly recommend if you do like your historical fictions, because it is really informative about what was going on and it has a beautiful storyline. It's a great tale of survival. If you like your Holocaust stories, you will absolutely love this. So this was another 5-star read for me. The next book I moved on to was a sci-fi, and that was Chasing the Shadows by Maria V. Snyder. This is the 2nd book in the Sentinels of the Galaxy series. I have been like racing through to read this because I've actually got the 3rd book, which you can see just there on my shelf, which I received as an advance copy. It got released in December, and I am trying really hard in January to basically play catch up on all of my arcs because there are so many that I need to read and get around to, but we will discuss that in a month's time when I do my wrap up for that. As a follow-up to Navigating the Stars, I thought this was really good. I still really enjoyed it. It is actually a pretty decent book. It's like 400 and something pages, but it is YA. It's very easy to read, and I think it's a really fun series. I really am enjoying the concepts that they're doing because Maria V. Snyder has established this concept of time dilation, which is basically the ways that people do and don't age in relation to each other when people travel through space. It's complicated, I'm not going to get into it because I will butcher it, but it also has a terracotta armies, and they are found on different planets, like the one that we have in China on our planet, and basically the main character's parents are lead archaeologists, space archaeologists if you will, and there's so many things about aliens and these terracotta armies going on, so this is just like a good little easy action sci-fi read if you're looking for something a little bit different. Maria V. Snyder never fails to please. I rated this one 4 out of 5 stars. The next book I read I actually don't have with me because my sister's currently borrowing it, but it's the 3rd book in the Scythe series, so I finally finished this series, which is really exciting. The toll is massive, it's about double the size of this one, and I really enjoyed it. There are so many mixed reviews out there for it. It is a wonderful dystopian series. Neil Shusterman is absolutely an author you need to pick up if you like YA dystopians. It is all set in a world where people no longer die, they have conquered death, and they have this AI called the Thunderhead which helps control population, and etc, so many other things. And it follows the people who are Scythes, who are basically the reapers of people of death, and they help keep the population in check, but there's loads of drama that goes on and nothing is as it should be. So the final book in that series I loved. I have heard people say it wasn't for them. It is a bit different to the 1st and 2nd books. I feel as you go through the series, you'll notice it in book 2, the scope of the book slowly expands. We go from a couple of characters to a few more, and then we sort of, in the 3rd book, we get a very broad perspective where you're looking at lots of different things. So it is, I guess, probably a little bit more slow going for people if you're not really into that, but I thought it was a really great way to tie it off because I felt like the series matured. It's like a weird sort of correlation with the Thunderhead itself. It felt like the reader became more in tune with the way that the Thunderhead managed the world. I don't know how to explain that better than that, but that was very confusing. But basically my final verdict is that it was brilliant and I loved it. I ended up rating it 5 out of 5 stars. I just thought that it was really well done and a super satisfying ending to the series. The next book I read also finished off a series. So I've been doing a great job in December for finishing series, and that is Lioness Rampant by Tamora Pierce. I have read this over the course of the last year and a bit, and I do really enjoy these. I think these are just really fun, like middle grade adventure. I'm actually not sure if they classify as middle grade or young adults. I want to say the latter probably, but I just think that Tamora Pierce has such a wonderful way of writing, and this like feminist like through line is really tangible as you read the story. You could just really pick up on that really female empowering storyline. So this is really great because if you identify as female, then this is probably a book that you want to have in your life as series. And I imagine the rest of Pierce's books are also similar, just because it's wonderful to see women portrayed in such a strong and independent way. In the way that Pierce does. It is just something that is totally unique. So I did really enjoy this one. I rated it 4 out of 5 stars. Interestingly, I actually do find these to be slightly slower reads for me. For whatever reason, I didn't get through this anywhere near as quickly as I had anticipated, but that doesn't mean that I didn't enjoy it. Still a thumbs up from me. I then dabbled into Lithuanian history again, and I picked up Words on Fire. I was thrilled to get around to this one. This was one of the books on my TBR I was super excited for. This is a book I've heard nobody else talking about, and again, it is about Lithuania's history during that time, the same one as Ruta Sepetys' book around World War II. This might even be a little bit earlier, but this one is more focused on the home front and what it looked like for Lithuanians living in Lithuania, which wasn't even sort of registered and recognised as that country, and what it meant. And it follows the main girl whose parents are book smugglers, and she doesn't really know anything about it. She's been kept in the dark. And it's about what happens when her parents get taken away and how she sort of survives and gets involved with the resistance. And again, it's another good alternate viewpoint to Lithuania's history, and I really feel like I've had a bit of an education this last month of learning and finding out about these things. So I would absolutely recommend picking this up. This was super easy to read and I just flew through it. It is a marvelous story that I really enjoyed. The next book that I managed to squeeze in was a small one called The Penguin Lessons. This is one of the non-fictions that I managed to get around to, and it was the last book on that TBR that I managed to get around to. So there were unfortunately 4 that I did not make it to, which is tragic, but I did try my best. I had initially anticipated having more time in December to read. I thought I was going to be working like half as much as I did, but I was basically working full time throughout December, which naturally meant I had way less time to read than I would have liked, but alas, what can you do? The penguin lessons is really cute, and I thought that this was fantastic and good to learn a little bit about Argentina. I don't know anything about Argentina, and this story is following, I think he's a British man, and he basically elects and moves to go over to Argentina to teach English over there, and it's his story about finding this penguin who got washed up in an oil spill, and he saved this penguin. And it's about this story because he just sort of ends up stuck with this penguin. It's a really, really beautiful little memoir, and I just thought it was really interesting because I've certainly never read anything that's been set in Argentina or really anywhere in South America before. I am super unfamiliar with that neck of the woods. It is something I would love to read more about because there was a little bit about Uruguay and there was a little bit about Argentina in here, and just a few things that you picked up through the book. This is obviously not a book specifically meant to educate you about Argentina. It is a story about a penguin, but I found this to be really heartwarming and beautiful and such a quick and easy read. So if you're looking for a little uplifting story that involves penguins and will just open your eyes a little bit to another country in the world, then I highly recommend that you pick this up because I found this thoroughly enjoyable. I ended up rating it 4 out of 5 stars. That brings me to my final read of the month, and that was Aragon. So I have finally reread Aragon. It is my last book for 2020, and I believe it was my last book also in like 2016 or something, which I find funny. I was really shocked rereading this and not remembering anything at all. This was like all new news to me. So I'm really glad that I decided to reread it because I was gonna try and go ahead and dive straight into Eldest, and then I thought, you know what, I just can't remember what happened in Aragon. Even though I've read the book and watched the film, though the film was crap, I just didn't remember anything that happened, and I found that interesting. I confess, interestingly, going through it a second time, I still find it hard to retain everything that happened in this series. So I don't know what it is. Maybe it's something about this particular writing style I actually found a little bit hard to absorb, but I really did enjoy reading it via audiobook, especially because this is the edition I've got and this is just not very transportable. So I was pleased with my decision there, and I'm looking forward to continuing the series. I definitely enjoyed it, and I'm glad that I refreshed my memory because it was well needed. I rated it 5 out of 5 stars. I just don't really have anything I can fault this with. It is such a gloriously expansive world that if you like fantasies, this is just the perfect read to sink your teeth into. So those are my 8 books that I managed to get to in December. That brought my tally for 2020 up to 64. So of my revised goal of 60, I managed to meet that, which I am thrilled about. I had a really good reading month. I was going to do a whole separate video about my 2020 wrap up, but I've decided because of having to take a break and how far I feel we're already into 2021, I'm actually not going to do that. So I will be doing a more extensive year wrap up over on my blog. If you want pie charts and graphs and all things like that, then I will absolutely be getting to that. But again, that will be delayed as well. But I'm really pleased with how my reading went. So when we compare it, 2020 was one of my better years, but I think it's probably about my 4th best year. In 2016, I read 85 books. In 2018, I read 72. 2015, I read 70. So that makes it my 4th best year for reading. If we're looking at pages, I read just shy of 25,000 pages. So I think that was my 3rd best year for page count, because in 2016, which was my best reading year, I read 28,000 pages, and my 2nd best reading year I read 26. So I was really close to actually sort of matching page count. I was just a couple thousand off, which is a matter of a few books. So like it was a good reading year because my best reading year I did 85 books, whereas I did 64, and that page count difference is not 20 pages worth of books. So I'm pleased that I've been reading some big books and getting through books that I have really enjoyed. If I had to pick a favorite for the year, I did do a whole video on this, but I feel that I should pick one as I have now finished my reading. I actually think it's really hard to say. I think if I had to pick my top 3 favorite books, I would go with Sleeping Giants. That book was the one that flabbergasted me the most. I would then pick The Pull of the Stars, and then I think I would actually pick Homegoing by Yaa Gyasi. That was an historical fiction that really caught me by surprise. So that is my wrap up for December. I am thrilled with how the year went. I can't wait to see what 2021 will hold. So let me know in the comments down below if you've read any of these or if you're thinking of reading them, and I will see you in my next video. Goodbye.
Alla gloria militar